Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review and reaction for Black Mirror Season 6, Episode 5, Demon 79. This is the finale. I think an episode that a lot of us were looking forward to for like a number of different reasons.
Oh my goodness, I love this episode. I was looking forward to this so much. When I saw that trailer and I saw Angela Vasson in that trailer, I was just like, this is it. This is the episode. I loved her so much in Killing Eve that I was just like, this is going to be the episode for me. And I had so much hype in my mind about this episode that it was going to be the episode that I was like, oh man, is it ever going to live up to it? And then it did, because then they introduced Boney M and everything that was going on. Oh my goodness, everything about this episode. It was perfection. 10 out of 10 for me.
You know
Best episode of the season. So good.
See, okay.
I know not everyone's going to agree with me, and I don't care.
That's fine. Do we need to revisit the Mazey Day take I made in episode 4? We're clearly not making these videos for the approval of the entire viewing public. But no, I do agree with you that this is a really good episode. Like, to me, this is probably my second favorite. I think, Joan is Awful is going to be number one in my heart and in my mind. But I think a lot of it just kind of comes down to, I felt like Joan is Awful was made a lot with like my sensibility in mind and things that I like from the moment that like I saw the cast of this episode to, I know how much you love Killing Eve, to also Boney M. I was just like, okay, they made this episode for Jess. Jeez, this is going to be your favorite episode. This is not even going to be close.
No, it wasn't even close. Like, casting really matters. I mean, we talked a little bit about this in Beyond the Sea as well, that so many people had really hyped that episode up because Aaron Paul was in it. And I mean, he's great. Who doesn't love Aaron Paul, right? Like, if you do, unsubscribe right now. But like,
well, hold on here. Stay subscribed. We still have a lot to get into.
But for me, when I saw that Angela was in this episode, I was just like, this is the episode for me. Absolutely. And yeah, I didn't know about the Boney M stuff that was going to be coming up in this episode, but clearly whoever's behind this season really likes Boney M, because back in Joan is Awful, she's wearing like a Boney M shirt. I like rewatched it last night, Joan is Awful, and she was sitting in the shirt. I'm like, that's a Boney M shirt. Like, what is going on here?
All right, well, we were going to get
Boney M is having a good day today.
They are having a good day today. And, if you love Boney M and also you love our Black Mirror stuff, hit that subscribe button. We are here talking all about this season. Like we've said, this is the finale. We've got reviews up for every single other episode. If you do not like this episode, you better watch out. Gob's going to come to you with an offer that's going to go. But no, thank you guys for all of your support here. We are also covering a lot of other just weird, dark shows right now. The Walking Dead, Dead City has just started. Silo is pretty close to the end, but there's still time to catch up on that. And also From, which is on MGM Plus, which is just dark and twisted. It's probably the one that has the most in common with Demon 79 out of these shows.
Okay, so before we get too far into like the plot and what we liked and what we didn't like, I want to talk about the upside down Y symbol for a second. Okay. Because when this whole like everything came out, oh, Black Mirror season 6 is coming back, and the poster came out for Beyond the Sea, the Y in Beyond was the upside right of Y of the upside down Y, if you are following along with me, from White Bear. So there was a lot of talking and theories of like, oh, is this episode going to be connected to White Bear? Like, White Bear is one of the best episodes ever made. And there was nothing in that episode at all. But everything was in this episode with that Y. I was just like, okay, so first we have this sort of plot where Nita has this a rune that she finds, and she cuts herself and she bleeds on the rune, and then, this demon shows up.
Yeah.
But the rune has the upside right Y when it starts. Of course, it turns into like a pitchfork later, however, but that's what it starts with. I'm like, okay, here's the connection. And by the end of it, we see Michael Smart, who's sort of like, he's not a demon, but he's not like the ultimate underlord, but he's kind of like maybe like one step in between, where he's kind of an underlord, but maybe like, executive vice president underlord.
Is he assistant to the regional manager?
However, all of his logos are that upside down Y from White Bear everywhere. I was like, You sneaky little Black Mirror people, you guys totally had us all fooled that this was going to have something to do with Beyond the Sea, and it didn't.
Charlie Brooker, look at you just being clever, just like messing with everybody's heads going into all this season. If only you could have put this level of creativity into certain parts of other episodes this season. But no, this, I think how he played into that was really, really cool. I kind of like the storytelling of sort of the hierarchy of the underworld. It's sort of in like a weird twisted way. It kind of reminded me a little bit about how there's different layers to all of it, like The Good Place, and obviously it's a very different sort of show. But I just think the concept of Demon 79 is very, very cool and pretty interesting. I mean, we've all sort of seen stories before about people, selling their souls to the underworld or summoning something up and getting orders and like that stuff is fairly familiar, but the idea of like turning someone into a killer and making them have to do something in a predetermined amount of time, it felt very like a psychological horror as much as anything else.
And there were some stakes, and it was like fast. It was like, you have 3 days, you have to kill 3 people, or the whole world's just going to end. It's just like the stakes were extremely high, and they needed to be that high to push her into actually doing it. We saw, of course, that she had these like visions in her head that she could do it or wanted to do it, but she never did. But it was kind of an interesting sort of show of back and forth, this juxtaposition of watching the demon talking about sort of how there is like a different hierarchy of where you are. You're an underlord, you're kind of like an executive vice president underlord, or you're a demon, or sort of where you are in the hierarchy to what is going on in her life as well, of what was going on at that time in the place that she was living. Like that's how it was kind of working, that there was also still kind of that going on where there was a fight going on. And it was interesting to see these two characters come together the way that they did, because there was sort of an understanding of that.
There's like this big psychological study of like nature versus nurture. It felt like this episode was a lot like nature and nurture. They kind of go together in a weird sort of way, because I think that proclivity to commit chaos and ultimately take people out, like there was always something that was within her that sort of was capable of this. But I think Gop and that presence and these level of stakes, it basically allowed her permission to access this part of herself that she probably never would have otherwise, and it nurtured it to the surface. And the psychological layers of that were really, really interesting. Just like the character Gop is just phenomenal. I love the costume was so cool. The look, the style, like
I love that he chose to look like Boney M, and they had seen that she was watching them and having a smile, watching them on TV. And then, Gop shows up and he's, a demon. She's scared. And he's like, okay, you know what? How about I look like one of the guys from Boney M, because clearly you're interested in them. It was just, there was such a nice dark humor that went with this, that it didn't take itself too seriously, while also touching on very serious issues that are going on. Like, it was a way that I think that they were able to kind of get through to people that way. Humor can really get through to people on some very serious issues.
Yeah, I love dark comedy. I think this episode played really well into it, because even once we start to get to the, all right, it's time to get the killing on, it's like ultimately, her choice of weapon, the way in which that she's going about all of this, the whole debate as to who to take out, what's the reasoning, is it justified? Like all of this, I think it was very serious, but it was also very strangely fun. And then I felt kind of bad for being like, this is kind of funny while I'm watching it.
There was also a really good twist right in the middle of it, because it wasn't exactly clear if it was like, you have 3 days to kill 3 people, and you have to do it before midnight. So I was like, okay, is it like a person a day then? Is that how it works? And they weren't clear on purpose, because we got to this sort of twist where when she gets to the second person and she kills Keith and then she kills his brother, and then you hear the ding, ding, ding sort of midnight. I was like, okay, so she's killed these 2 people before midnight.
Yep.
So is this not going to count then? And then he gets on the phone. He's like, yep, okay, I understand. Okay, Keith doesn't count because he's a killer. I was like, what? I'm like, that's the twist. It wasn't that it was at, before midnight and she still has to get somebody the next day. It was really well done.
Apparently, if there's certain restrictions, it gets to not counting if they're killers. Dexter Morgan would have a very hard
I
time
know.
dealing with Gop and some of the hierarchy that's going on here. But I think the progression of this is very, very interesting, because as it starts to get going more and more into this episode, you start to get the sense that, like, okay, she's actually really dangerous, and she's actually starting to kind of find her groove in this. It's sort of like a bizarre alternate reality Killing Eve story in a way, where we sort of saw how people become recruited into the 12, that organization on that show. And it's kind of like, we're actually seeing a more compelling origin story here than we did sometimes on Killing Eve.
No, it is very kind of close to that kind of character where it is in her, but something needs to bring it out. And yeah, the 12 was able to bring it out of her on Killing Eve. And here we have this demon where they really are connecting on sort of feeling lost and just not really knowing where they fit in. They're sort of in a place in their respective societies where they do not fit in. They just don't feel welcome. They feel like they're lost sort of in oblivion. And, there's stakes there for both of them, where it's like, Nita's like, oh, if I don't do this, the whole world's going to end. And then Gop on the other side is like, if you don't do this, I'm going to be sent into oblivion to be by myself for the end of time. Like, it's such huge stakes that they really both are depending on each other. Two lost souls.
Oh, okay. Now there's a tenderness to this episode.
There was a tenderness to this episode with these two, and how they connected with each other and how they came to care for each other.
I think if Gop didn't have this level of stakes, I don't think this episode would have worked. I think the real reason I'm really excited about it on the other side of it is that, he had a reason to need her. She had a reason to need him. Like, they were able to sort of form this bizarre symbiotic relationship through a lot of it, where they came to really understand each other. And well, let's just talk about the ending at this point, because we're pretty far in. If this relationship wasn't what it was, I would not like this ending, and I would feel like, okay, it's a little bit of a cop-out. They found a way to sort of have them still together, like everything else. But ultimately, I think it works because we got to understand these two characters. And you know what? Every episode of Black Mirror is its own thing. It's fine. The world can end in this one, and, we'll come back in potentially season 7. There will still be a world. There will still be things to do.
I absolutely loved that he was telling her the truth the whole time, because like, as it was going on, of course, I'm sitting back as an audience member being like, he's a demon. He's not probably telling her the truth, where it's like that first kill was like, oh, this man is not a good man. This is what this man is doing. Like, I was waiting for the moment where she was going to question him on that and be like, are you telling me the truth? And she did at one point, to kind of be like, how do I know you're telling me the truth? Like, you're a demon. You're going to tell me whatever you want to tell me to get me to do whatever it is you're wanting me to do, sort of thing. So when she finally she is unable to kill Michael Smart, she's like, he's going to be the guy, show me what he's going to be like in the future. And it is bleak that she's like, okay, he's going to be the guy. And Gop is like, no. He's on our side, sort of thing. He's not a killer, but he's one of us, kind of thing. And she's like, I don't care. Like, this is what the loophole is. This is the guy. And she ends up not killing him, but ends up arrested, where she's really explaining very honestly to the detective, this is what is happening. And you see the clock ticking, where we know she didn't kill that third person in time. And I was like, is the world really going to end? Like, is everything he's saying true? I was so happy that it's going to sound so weird. I was so happy that they actually decided to go there, where it was like, no, all of it was actually true. He was telling her the truth. And now they're in this position of like, okay, if she stays here, she's just going to end up dead because the world is ending. Gop has found this get out of jail free card where it was like, hey, it didn't say I couldn't bring a human with me. You want to come? I was just like, oh, I don't know how this is such a sweet ending with a demon and a killer who just ended the world walking off into the sunset of flames together. How am I here? How did you do this to me, Charlie?
It's because Charlie did a good job. He did a good job, and the actors did a really good job of like bonding us to these characters.
They were both so good.
Yeah, I think if one thing was just not right, this would not have worked. This was a really risky episode.
Yeah, it
with
was.
that in mind, and it was a very hard thing to pull off. And I really hope that everyone out there, I mean, not only just watches this episode, obviously, but really appreciates all the different parts of it, because, you know, there's nobody in this episode that I would consider to be like a big name. Let's like, you know, we're familiar because of Killing Eve, but like, there's no A-list star in this episode.
That was the first time I ever saw her was in Killing Eve, and she was just so memorable and so good.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's not, you know, you could say, oh, the selling point of this is just like a lot of the demonic stuff, but it's like, I don't think there's one thing necessarily that stands out. I think this episode stands out for like 3 or 4 different things. And so I hope that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, because it's not, I don't think it's as splashy as like Joan is Awful or even like USS Callister or like some episodes like that are going to generate better headlines, but it's so well constructed. It's funny, it's dark, it has an ending that really works for it. These are the swings that we really want from Black Mirror, and when they land, they land.
And this really landed. I think if one element was missing of this, whether it's the writing, the casting was just perfect. It needed to have that humor, because if it took itself too seriously, it wasn't going to work. Like, everything came together just so seamlessly with this that, like with Mazey Day, there was missing elements that could have come together to make it better. Or even with Beyond the Sea, there was like, there's a little bit of something there. You know, was it writing, casting, directing? There was something that was missing there that if that had come together, it probably would have been the best episode, but it didn't. Here it all came together. Like the casting was so good, the writing was so good, the storytelling, the humor. I would watch this episode 100 times over.
All right, with that in mind, this is the perfect transition, because I know this is the moment that like I'm gonna either indulge myself or make everybody really mad. It's time to rank the season 6 episodes, everybody. Number 1, Joan is Awful.
No, Demon 79.
Okay, I will accept your opinion, but your opinion is also wrong. Number 1 is Joan is Awful.
Absolutely no.
Because
get out.
No, that's the funniest thing is we're sitting here arguing about, I think, 2 episodes that are both really good.
Okay, we'll rank them in together. Okay, so for you, it is Joan is Awful, number 1. For me, it is Demon 79, no contest.
Yeah.
Number 2, Joan is Awful.
Okay, number 2, Demon 79. See, we're not off like that much here. I mean, I think
no, you're off. Number 1 is Demon 79.
I also think there's a pretty big gap between number 1 and number 2, but that's just
because how dare you besmirch Boney M's name?
I love Boney M, and I love this episode. I'm just thinking, you said you could watch this 100 times.
Absolutely.
I could watch Joan is Awful like 200 times. Like, I could watch
300 times.
Okay, yeah, we're just gonna sit here. We're gonna become the first episode of Succession season 4. Congratulations on saying the bigger bleeping number. Okay, no, I do, but I think both of these are really good, really creative, interesting episodes. Number 3, I have Beyond the Sea here.
Me too.
I think the scientific idea of Beyond the Sea, like, if they had nailed the rest of this episode, like, I think I could have enjoyed it more than Demon 79 in like an alternate universe.
No.
But I'm not saying I did, because they didn't land everything, but as just like a sci-fi concept guy, I really, really like the concept of it. And I do think it's a very good episode. It's just, it's not nearing perfection in the way that these other episodes were.
Number 4 for me, and I know I've got my hard hat on. I know like everybody absolutely loves Loch Henry, and I liked it. I did. It was just, I've seen this type of formula a whole bunch of times on shows like Criminal Minds, and that because of that, it just didn't hit the way that others have hit for me in the past. But I mean, it was really well acted, beautifully shot. I mean, the storytelling was good. It was just like, it wasn't very surprising. So I have it at number 4. Don't come for me.
Oh boy. No, it's okay. They're gonna be too busy coming for me. Number 4 is Mazey Day. And this is why.
Oh,
This is
what?
why. Don't
It was terrible.
Okay. It was awesome for about 5 minutes. And you know what? Those 5 minutes of awesomeness are better than anything Lock Henry did for me. A lot of it is just expectations. Here's what I expect from Black Mirror. I want a really interesting idea that is thoughtful, creative, interesting. It's going to surprise me on some level.
Yes.
Like, I think the concept of Mazey Day and the potential there is exponentially greater than any potential that Lock Henry had, because Lock Henry never allowed itself to have that level of potential. And it just fell flat to me. Everything about it was well done enough, but it didn't have anything underneath it. It was just a hollow skeleton of an episode.
Okay, at least it had cohesive storytelling from the beginning to the end, and the end of it, with Davis and his award and everything. It was a well-told story. The commentary on, sort of the streaming services putting up this type of content and the real people behind it, it was all there. It was just because it's Black Mirror, I expect twists that I don't see coming. And because they had, sort of introduced the mom and, oh, the dad was there and he got shot but not killed. I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we've seen this before. So clearly the dad's involved. Oh, and he is. I was just like, all right, cool. But Mazey Day, that was not cohesive storytelling. That Bo character got done dirty.
Yeah, she did. There was also a celebrity werewolf tearing through things.
That was great.
Yes, that was.
But that wasn't enough for it to be number 4 over Lock Henry.
I appreciate the swing. It's sort of like, for everybody who watches American Horror Stories, there's an episode of that show, another anthology called The Naughty List, that is basically just like, evil Santa Claus.
Bro House.
The Bro House.
I know, we were the only people that watched that episode.
I love that episode. Did you know why I love that episode? Because it was weird and interesting and creative.
It was.
And this episode, Mazey Day, is weird, interesting, and creative. It has a ton of problems, but at least it tried.
Okay, Bro House actually put together a cohesive story. I believed everything that was happening.
I believed enough with Mazey Day. I'm not saying I believed all of it. The ending sucked, but you know what? I will stand on this hill. I will stand there alone. I will wave my werewolf flag around, and that will be it. But this is it. We've made it to the end of Black Mirror season 6.
And now we're going to be waiting 10 more years for the rest of them to come out next season.
Yeah. And who knows what Charlie Brooker's even going to do with that? I mean,
Who knows?
He might come back with one amazing episode and then just 4 everybody hates. So it's always really hard to tell with this show.
It is hard to tell. I think overall, they gave us more episodes that are rewatchable, that were really enjoyable, than they gave us stinkers.
Yeah, I think in general, at least to us, 3 out of 5 episodes that I think we both consider to be at least very good, if not really, really good. That's not a bad rate for a show like this.
Demon 79 is one of my all-time favorite episodes. I know you said Jonah's Awful is your number 1. I mean, which is, again, kind of crazy to me when you've got episodes like White Bear and Nosedive out there, but that's okay. But yeah, Demon 79, it's right up there for me.
It's too hard to go all the way in, but I think both of these episodes have to be in at least a top 10 list, if not a top 5. They're both really, really good. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you to all of our Patreons for your support. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
We'll see you here next time.